All right, let's dive right into this explainer and tackle what's honestly the ultimate mystery. How do simple sounds, squiggles, and random lines actually come to mean, well, anything at all? Language is literally the most important tool we have, and yet when you really look at it, its foundation is incredibly elusive. Today, we're taking a highly interactive journey. We'll kick things off with the visual riddle, inevitably fall into the intuitive trap, power through the deconstruction, hit a massive paradigm shift, and wrap it all up with a final challenge. And fair warning, we're going to hit some deliberate cognitive speed bumps along the way to really test your assumptions. Section 1, the visual riddle. Let's kick things off with a quick puzzle just to show you exactly how weird meaning really is right at its core. Take a look at this drawing. Your brain is almost certainly telling you, okay, that's a person climbing up a hill, right? But the famous philosopher Ludwig Wittgenstein pointed out something wild. He said this exact same arrangement of lines could just as easily represent a man sliding down a hill completely backwards. There is absolutely nothing in the lines themselves that forces one meaning over the other. Crazy, right? And the exact same thing goes for the text we read every single day. Think about the phrase, I am happy. To us, sure, it conveys a positive emotion. But imagine an alien civilization stumbles upon those exact same squiggles. In their language, those lines could translate to a completely absurd complaint. Like, I don't know, my trousers are in tatters. The shapes themselves, they're totally devoid of any intrinsic meaning. This brilliantly illustrates that signs have absolutely zero intrinsic representational power. Just look at this drawing. A species of one-eyed aliens might look at this and clearly see a friendly face waving hello. Meanwhile, a human map maker might look at the exact same shapes and see a topographical map showing exactly where buried treasure is located, complete with an X marking the spot. It turns out, anything can mean practically anything under the right conditions. So, here is our first cognitive speed bump. I want you to pause this explainer right now and ask yourself, if nothing has intrinsic meaning, how in the world do we actually agree on what anything means? Can you think of a symbol or a word in your own daily life that means completely opposite things to different groups of people? Go ahead, debate that. And when you're ready, hit play. Section 2, the intuitive trap. Because if signs don't mean anything on their own, what actually gives them life? Well, we naturally fall into a bit of an intuitive trap trying to answer this. Picture a parrot that's been trained to squawk the words, I am happy. Now picture yourself saying, I am happy. You're both producing the exact same outward physical sounds, right? But you actually mean it, and the parrot doesn't. We just naturally assume that the human means it because of some hidden internal mental process, a process the poor parrot completely lacks. This brings us to the 17th century philosopher John Locke, who gave us what feels like the ultimate common sense answer. In his view, the mind is basically an empty container at birth. Over time, our senses furnish this container with ideas, which are essentially just mental images. Locke argued that our words have meaning because they stand for these private inner mental objects. Basically, your mind is just a massive private mental filing cabinet full of images. Which means it's time for our second discussion trigger. Pause the explainer again and really examine your own mind for a second. When you say the word dog, do you actually look up a mental picture of a dog? And if two people have completely different mental images of a really complex word like justice, do they actually mean different things? Talk it over, and let's see if this theory survives what's coming next. Section 3, the deconstruction. Now, you're probably nodding along with Locke right now. It feels so intuitively right. But Wittgenstein is about to completely pull the rug out from under us. Let's head over to Pedro's paint shop and see how this builds a really profound counterargument. Imagine a guy named Pedro who runs a paint shop. Now, Pedro doesn't read a single word of English. But when he gets an order for red paint, he goes straight to a physical filing cabinet. He matches the English word red on the order form to a label on a card in his cabinet. That card has a physical blob of red paint on it. He then uses that physical blob to find the right tin of paint in his shop. And we intuitively think our minds work exactly like Pedro's cabinets. But here is the fatal flaw in Locke's entire theory. You see, Pedro uses a physical, objective card, but a mental image, that is an objective. If you receive the word red and go into your mental filing cabinet to find the matching image, how on earth do you know which image to pull out? To find the right inner image of red, you must already know what the word red means. The whole explanation is entirely circular. It completely presupposes the very knowledge it's trying to explain.
So, the absolutely crucial point here is that trying to explain meaning by pointing to some inner object is a classic circular logic trap. It's exactly like that old myth that the earth doesn't fall because it rests on the back of a giant elephant. Well, what holds up the elephant? Oh, a turtle. And what holds up the turtle? You see the problem? You haven't explained anything. You've just shifted the mystery. Or it's like thinking human behavior is controlled by little people running around inside our brains steering the ship. It just takes the very thing we're trying to explain completely for granted.
Before we move on, let's really grapple with this. Why are we so stubbornly addicted to these circular, logically bankrupt explanations? Why is it so incredibly hard to let go of the illusion that there's a mental filing cabinet or a little person in our heads? Pause the explainer right here and debate this with your group. Section 4. The paradigm shift. So if meaning isn't intrinsically in the lines on a page, and it isn't hidden away in some private mental filing cabinet, where on earth is it? Well, Wittgenstein offers a revolutionary synthesis here, and it literally shifts the entire landscape of philosophy. He argues that meaning isn't a private inner state at all. It's not hidden in some mysterious, ghostly medium called the mind. Instead, meaning is right there on the surface. To grasp a word's meaning is simply to know how it's used in practice. Think back to you and that parrot both saying, "I am happy." The essential difference between you and the bird isn't some hidden inner parade of ideas. The difference is entirely about what you can do. You possess publicly observable abilities. You can explain what the word happy means. You can point to examples. You can use the word to construct 1,000 brand new sentences in different social contexts. The parrot? It can do none of those things. Meaning, as it turns out, is a shared public game. All right, here is your fourth speed bump. Pause the video and really debate the wild implications of this. Because if meaning is just a shared public game based entirely on use, does that mean a word's definition can change simply if enough people use it incorrectly? Who exactly is refereeing this game? Section 5, the final challenge. Let's move to our conclusion and see how this paradigm completely shifts our understanding of not just language, but communication as a whole. Just look at the cognitive journey we've taken together today. We started by realizing that visual signs and squiggles are totally empty of intrinsic meaning. Then we fell right into Locke's trap, assuming that private inner thoughts must give those signs life. But then we used Wittgenstein to expose that inner mind machinery as a giant circular logical fallacy. And finally, we arrived at the liberating realization that meaning actually lives out in the open, defined entirely by public use. And I'm going to leave you with this final provocative thought experiment. Imagine you are trying to teach an AI what the word love means. Based on Wittgenstein, if meaning is purely just use, does a machine that has absolutely no private inner mind, but that perfectly uses the word in complex social contexts, actually understand it? Debate that, keep questioning everything you think you know, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.